Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending our latest webinar. I'm very pleased to say we've got Chad Folsom with us live from Alberta in Canada, and we're going to talk about Chad's experience when going for his or deciding for his robots. Before I hand over to Chad, I'd just like to do a bit more of an introduction for him. And also just talk to you about why we're doing this as ForFarmers. We've got some nice processes in place and nice services that we'd like to offer as part of our Robot Ready service that we offer farmers. And one of those services is getting used to it. We call it orientation, but getting used to the idea or the concept of going for robots, and hence why we're doing this this presentation with Chad, because he's gone through this. But yeah, we're there for you with preparation and the full operation, optimization, and then maximization. But the first part is robots right for your business. So we've got Chad with us, and Chad's gone through all this. He's based in Alberta, as I mentioned, in Canada. We've been talking a lot about the landscape around him. It sounds amazing, and for those who have been lucky enough to go, they'll know the beauty of the Rockies, which is where Chad's based. He's just 30 miles north of the US border and just over 2 hours away from Calgary. And for those who know the geography and also the weather patterns, I know yesterday when we were talking to Chad, it was -23, and they can get temperatures up to 30. And he sits there nearly 4,000 feet above sea level, which is tremendous height above sea level, but can still grow the alfalfa and some of those other rocket fuels out there. The farm itself has been around since 1915. And it's a family farm. Chad farms in partnership with his parents and also his wife, and they've got, I think it's 5 children. Just reading my notes, make sure I get that right. 4 heifers and a bull calf, as I remember. And Chad's also one of 6. So yeah, nice big family, lots of free labour, I'm guessing we've got there. I don't want to steal too much of Chad's presentation, but just a little bit of a background on the farm. So approximately 2,000 acres. So, you know, for us over here in the UK, you know, a huge farm, and yeah, blessed with the 500 acres of alfalfa as well as other crops on the farm. So a couple of labour on the farm also. But yeah, managing, we'll cut to the chase. Chad did decide for robots in the end, and I think started with 10, now 12. So we've got labour there to assist with quite a large unit there with the cattle. So without further ado, I will pass over to Chad, who will talk us through his experience. I'll turn my camera off. I'll put it back on at the end. That's when we'll take some questions. So please send your questions through. We'll do as much as we can. We're going to try and keep it to an hour. And yeah, let's hand over to Chad.
Thank you, Laurence. Sorry, guys, for my Canadian accent, but you'll get used to it. So my name is Chad Folsom, about 36 years old. This is my family right here that you guys can see. My wife, Diana, who is originally from Colombia. And then my 5 children. I have, believe it or not, the 2 on the right are twins. Heifers grow faster on our farm than bulls, so that's a good thing. They maybe got colostrum first, I don't know. But yeah, and so I am the youngest of 6. I got 5 siblings, four girls, and then my dad finally had 2 boys. And all 5 of my siblings are actually in the United States right now. I'm the only one here, and I mean, I guess I don't have to fight with succession planning or anything, so that's a good thing. So we were established in 1915. For us over here, that's quite an old farm. I think we're the longest tenured farm in the province of Alberta that's on the same location. There's a couple of them that beat us to the punch, but we've been producing milk for almost 100 years. And yeah, so one crack I was gonna make is these are my 5 kids, and 5 that I know about. Father's Day is always confusing, but we'll just stay there. So next slide. So as you can see here, we're located right on the edge of the Rocky Mountains. We're right close to the US border. Just to give you a heads up on dairy farming in Canada, most of the farms are in Quebec or Ontario. And then British Columbia, it's all kind of centralized around the Vancouver area called we call the Fraser Valley, which they just experienced extreme flooding. Lots of farms were flooded right out. So a lot of the cattle's been shipped out here just to throw in farms to keep things rolling and production going. But we're right on the edge of the prairies, which goes down to the Midwest, the US. We are right on the edge of the mountains, so we get to enjoy the skiing side of things, the lakes, the mountain fishing, and we also get the first rights to all the irrigation. As Laurence said, we have about 2,000 acres. About 1,100 of those acres are put into a cereal, which we typically grow barley. Corn, we do not grow where we're at because we are a little bit too low on BTUs. Corn heat BTUs, we're only sitting around 1,600 pushing it, where if you go about an hour east of us, they have excellent corn growing conditions and they do a lot of grain corn. We're just a little bit too high, but we settle with barley crops, alfalfa, and do some canola oils. So this is where we're located. We love it here. We got the access to the prairies, the rivers, irrigation. We've got first rights on all the irrigation, and then we got the Rocky Mountains behind us, so we really like where we're at. Alberta itself only has about 500 dairy farms. Average size is about, I think it's about 180 right now. Saskatchewan, Manitoba is averaging right around 250. Ontario, and then especially Quebec is only averaged like 50 or 60 cows. A lot of small farms, but Quebec's got about 6,000 farms. Ontario's got a couple thousand, and then each of the provinces around 300 to 500 farms. So most of the milk gets produced in southern Ontario and southern Quebec. Out here, we're typically grain farmers, cow-calf operations, and feedlots. We produce, I think, 70% of the beef in Canada just within 2 hours drive from my place. Next slide. So milk price right now in Canada, 80 cents a liter. We just created a pretty big ruffle of feathers here in the market. We just demanded an increase. So right now we're sitting, as of February 1st, we're at actually about 86 cents a liter. That's just a base price. That's not going into premiums, depending on what class of milk we're producing. These are kind of rough figures. Cost of production around 40 cents a liter. That's kind of where we always based most of our numbers off of with investing and whatnot. Quota, we have a supply managed country, which we love and hate. We just hate playing the middle of the game. I did go to school in the US. I went to Utah State University. I just felt that down there, they do a very good job of precision management with numbers, where up here we are kind of graced a little bit with the quota system. So, I mean, a lot of producers in a typical free market would probably get washed out if they didn't have the protection of the quota system, but it protects small town, rural, especially in Ontario and Quebec. Out west, out here, I think we would be just fine getting rid of that quota system. So yeah, cost of production is about half. The cost of quota, you add on about 20 cents on top of that, a little bit of margin. Now that's Canadian cents. You guys have your euros and your pounds over there. I've known it once when I went over there a few years back, but I don't do the conversion in my head every day. So farm labor, it's around $20 an hour. So about 12 euros. Yeah, I'll just say in Canadian, guys. Accommodations, we do provide our labor with housing, roughly $1,000 a month. So labor costs a lot for us. And it's not just Alberta, Canada, it's mainly just where we're at. We are a little bit isolated where we're at. We're about an hour from a center of about 150,000 people. We're right nestled in 2 hours south of Calgary, which is about 1.5 million people. 30 minutes drive, we've got a few towns of about 4,000 to 5,000 people. So it's been a struggle to get people here. So for the longest time, we were bringing in foreign workers, mostly from Mexico, and they were getting paid anywhere from, as a milker, 16 up to 20 bucks an hour, plus housing, plus utilities, plus I had to pay about $3,000 to $4,000 to get them here as a pretty much just a farm laborer. And now a little bit higher class labor. I've gone with some labor out of the Ukraine, guys with education. What I typically do is tell them to go to England, go to Denmark, go to Sweden, get educated, and come over here. Get educated, go get educated at home, go over there, get the experience from you guys, and then come over here and we'll take care of them. So poaching labor from you a little bit. Next slide. But we really like our guys. We run about 3 guys as our farming crew. In the wintertime, we just do different projects. And then in the summer, on the farming side, we stay very busy. Wintertime, we keep projects going. On the dairy side, I'll get into it a little bit later on the labor on the dairy side. So just a quick rundown. 1915, a mixed farm, 20 cows. That was my great-grandfather. I am the 5th generation. My 13-year-old twins, they'd be the 6th generation. So 1940s, we expanded tie stall, vacuum line. We were the first ones to put a high-rise vacuum line in our old tie stall barn. And in the 60s, we kind of specialized in dairy and got rid of all the sheep and everything else that goes with it. That might be a curse word for some of you guys, but we did get rid of the sheep. The 60s, we built a parlor. My great uncle, my great grandfather brought in a parlor from the US, a double 4 herringbone with 8 machines, not just a swing parlor. And then we had the silo. We had an automatic feed system going with the silos. And in the 80s, we had mainly focused. That was my dad's years. He bought the farm when he was in the early 70s. Land and quota expansion. Quota, we'll get into it a little bit later, is very expensive. I sometimes wish we didn't have it, and then the big things I'll really focus on, because in some maps and drawings later on in the presentation, we will definitely see this. So in 1995, we built a new dairy barn. We did have an older freestall barn with silos that kind of fed off an automatic feed system. We were the longest automatic feed system at one point in Western Canada. But that system was just kind of getting outdated because we wanted to grow. So in 1995, my dad built a new T-barn. It was a drive-through 6-row barn with 3 rows of freestalls on either side. Downside of that was his lack of feed bunk space, but for economical purposes with the building costs, it just made most sense to us. We had a double 12 parallel parlor. That's the parlor I grew up in mostly. And it was a Bowmatic Westphalia parlor, and it was excellent. We loved it. As time got going farther, we got going with more cattle, and we just felt the need to do different things. I came back from school roughly 2008, 2009. First thing we did is build a bedded pack barn to get our cows. Part of the freestall barn, they were just bedded down in freestall areas that didn't have the stalls on. It was terrible. Now that I look back at it, but you got to do what you got to do with the time being. So in 2015, we did a big expansion, and this is what triggered a lot of our decision making. Is I don't know how you guys are with environmentalists and with setbacks from villages and hamlets, but we got a village that's only 3/4 of a kilometer south of our farmstead, and so it took me almost 2 years of permitting. I'm just at the 2015 part. 2 years of permitting. I had to go around to about 83 houses and get them to sign a waiver. And everyone signed to allow me to expand from a permitting capacity of about 300 all the way up to 600. And I got it, but it took a long time. And then and I have a highway on one side of me and a canal on the other side of my farmyard. So I really had to start thinking about efficiencies, and if I want to stay in this location, which is, we homesteaded this location, so it's my home. It's Folsom family. We migrated from the States and from across the pond from you guys, really. And this is where we're putting our roots down. So we did not want to do that. So it really got me thinking of what system and what model can I get the most out of on a per animal unit. Not large scale thinking in the thousands, but I needed to see what was most efficient per animal. Because that ultimately was my limiting capacity. So in 2015 we got the permit for it, and then we built our expansion. We took some of the old barn and converted it into like a palpation area to work cattle. It was really nice. And then we put a 480 stall expansion on that barn. And then about a year after we finally got moved into the barn in 2018, some of the old barn, it was an open truss system. Birds are in the rafters and everything, but it collapsed. We had snow load issues and it just fell down on us. Luckily, we had just moved into the barn. We only had dry cows in the facility, and we only lost 2 animals with it. But we ended up getting the whole barn redone and reshaped, so it was great for us. And then right after that, we figured we needed to upgrade the parlor, and that's where we went over in 2019 and went with robots. So next slide. So with that whole time, it was a lot of decision making. So like I said, in 2017, the permitting was very difficult in our location. Moving locations was not an option I really wanted to explore, because this is what our home is. This is where we're at. So what milking system is most economical to milk cows? That's huge. We had many discussions with our veterinarians and our feed analysis and nutritionists, and frankly, they were actually against robots at the time. They didn't think it was good for us. We had staff issues in the herd. Staph aureus was an issue, and it's just maybe lack of me being a good manager, but that was an issue. So going to robots, that was the biggest fear, is going into robots and having that being exposed even more, high somatic cells. But we just figured, what system will maximize my per cow output? Another question we had for ourselves is, what system would consumers prefer? We were chit-chatting before the seminar here that actually, if you're driving from Calgary south, there's a national park just behind me, Waterton National Park. We actually get a lot of tourist traffic, and we have people stop by all the time. There's always the issues with PETA coming in, animal rights activists coming in. So we just figured, what would consumers want in 10, 20 years from now? What does the consumer want? Do they want to see cows in a tie stall, ideally pasture, but with 6 months of winter out here, sometimes we can't do that? Do they want to see the robots? Do they want to see a rotary? And that played a big part of our decisions. So in 10, 15 years, we really just didn't want to regret our decision. So, I mean, I think that's with everyone making a big time decision like that. It's important. So next slide. And I think everybody should be asking some of these questions on where you're at, where you're wanting to go, is where do you want to be in 10, 15 years? Because if you go ahead and upgrade your parlor or put your rotary in, you just don't want to be making the wrong decision. You're not going to know that until you're in it and you're already kind of stuck in it. So we toured around quite heavily. We looked at different barn layouts, visited several different setups. And one of the biggest things we did, and I'd recommend this to anyone, is when you go to the farm, usually the sales guy from whoever you're working with, D. LaBelle, whoever, is going to take you through, almost just give the sales guy a kick in the pants and tell him to go around the corner and get the dairyman on his own and ask him. This is what we did. We just kindly asked the guy to leave, and sooner or later he got the hint of it, so he'd automatically leave on his own whenever we go to a new farm. Well, we asked the dairymen what they like and don't like about their setups, or if they were already a robot farm, what they regret, but what was their real opinion, when they're off record or they're not going to offend anyone, just to study the trends that they went through and are going in the industry. You get the real answers when people that, like farmers, you and I, we're chatting, and trying to figure out why people made the decisions, what they would take back if they had to go a different direction. So next slide. So the biggest thing is tour and educate yourselves, I think are crucial. So yeah, I mean, our biggest thing, and when we get to the design, you'll see this, but we had a double 12 parallel parlor that we really liked. Our milking efficiency, we had, you know, roughly 300 cows, and we were milking roughly about 90 to 93 cows per hour. That's with one guy running a double 12 parallel with 24 machines. We'd have one guy feeding calves, one guy that was kind of a cow pusher, moving groups and feeding the cows. That was our shift. And we went many different directions, and in some slides here later, you'll see the different numbers on all of that. But we felt we were pretty efficient. And so our minds for many, many years were rotary. We went to many farms and toured the exterior rotaries. We loved the idea of the interior rotary because we felt like one guy could run that, like a 32 carousel. We felt the pros, you know, we sketched down on notepads, you know, the pros to rotaries, your improved milking efficiency. If you're looking larger scale versus a parlor, it does make sense if you're just looking at milking efficiency. You can easily milk more cows by buying more cows and building more barns. So your economics on that does play a factor. But I also have to go into the cons. You know, there's not really an advantage for the cow herself. This is my opinion, but you're still herding the cow to the holding pen just like you would in a parlor. I mean, she gets used to the daily routine. You know, you go to get your groups and the cows are already all standing up, but you're still disrupting the cow from doing what she wants to do. She'd likely rather stay there, chew her cud, rest, go to the feed bunk, drink water, but she's got to get milk. So we're taking her from that natural habitat and forcing her to go through this area. And whether that's a good experience or a bad experience, I'd like to think it's a good experience for all cows, but we know that it's not. And for us, you know, also the cons, our quotes were more expensive. So we quoted out robots, we quoted out a rotary. We weren't interested in going to another parlor. We felt that if we're going to go through a parlor, we wanted to get to a rotary and have more efficient milking, because we wanted to keep growing our numbers and just leave that option open for us. So the quotes came back, and our rotary is actually quite expensive. That was one con. And also, you know, the general public feels the rotary is kind of a U.S. factory farm concept. That's what we get compared to a lot of here. Is they compare them to the U.S. where they've got 10,000 head. Some of them have 40, 50,000 head down there. And I worked on several of those farms, and they're not bad systems, but does the public, the average consumer, really want to see that? I felt there was less flexibility in an owner's schedule if you're more of an owner-run farm, hands-on. I thought the flexibility. I thought the flexibility with rotaries is it's the same thing as a parlor, and you can't really upgrade on the go. When you make that decision on a rotary or a parlor, you're booked solid for 20, 30 years on that decision. The gray area, the maintenance costs and durability, it's really easy to throw expenses in there and really to skew those numbers. So that was the gray area at the time. We just didn't know. So next slide. And so, yeah, we were just trying to get back to the basics. So the robots, the pros for us, the nice thing was there's resale markets. When we signed on our Lely, we have 12 Lely robots now, but when we signed up, we signed for A4s, and they actually delivered A5s. That was in the contract. If A5s come out at the same time, they did. We got signed up for them. So the resale upgrade is very easy. I mean, you can get upgrades in a parlor or rotary, but you're kind of limited. So the resale and upgrade are very doable. Cows are very comfortable and on their own time with less labor. Now, I did not really understand that. I believed in it, but then not until I was actually moved into my robots that I really understood that concept. Cows are on their own time. And, you know, the data part, I'm a big numbers guy. I like to get the data. With the robots, I can get real-time data, and you can get that in your parlors. It's quite expensive, especially where we're at, but I found that consumers love the idea of robots. When We have the ability to milk 3 to 5 times per day. We were typically a two a day milking herd, but we did test the waters on 3 a day. And I love the ability to precision feed, because we had some cows I just knew that I could push more, and I couldn't because we had a typical TMR, total mixed ration diet, where now we're technically a PMR. So the cons that I had big, huge question marks on the robots was the alarms and the ability to expand on another robot. And then to the right here, I kind of went through the expansion in Canada with quota costs and whatnot, which for you guys isn't really relevant. But I just felt that I feel still now with the ability to have less labor and the efficiencies that come with robotic milking, I still think without a quota system, it's a good option. It definitely should be on your final 2 choices. The greater we had it is the maintenance cost. We do have solid data on that now. I don't know if I touch it later. I'll just tell you now. My actually per month maintenance cost is lower now in my robot than it was in my parlor. Now that's dealing with a 20, 25-year-old parlor, but well, actually 23-year-old parlor at the time. But I believe our maintenance costs now are roughly around $7,500, and that's a month. That's Canadian, and that's with 12 robots. And that's hiring the dealership to come in 1 time a month, and they do a maintenance on certain robots with one of my guys or 2, mostly just 1, and that's chemical cost, labor cost, and everything. So let's go to the next slide on that one. Yeah, so I mean that was our pros and cons on the robots. You really have to do this. I'm sure everyone has done this already. So we were kind of leaning towards the robots. We felt that the gains we were getting from the individual cow gains, because I mean, if you remember my original decision, what system can I get on a per cow efficiency basis? Feed costs, labor costs, all my fixed costs included. So we toured, we started leaning towards, we were leaning towards the robots, then we started touring the different brands, and all brands are good brands. That's what we learned. I mean, I think there's definitely a couple that are ahead of the game on the other 2, but I don't want to be too biased there, but I won't even say it. I would go Lily. I'll say it, fine. I think De La Valle is up there. I do think Lely's got a lot better support from their corporation. But I do think it comes down to your individual cow dealership centers and everything. So. In 2016, we toured with our local dealership. We went down to the States, went to the Midwest. They have lots of big dairies down there on Lely's. We were kind of made the decision to go Lely at the time. We just felt that Lely commitment to innovation, quality milking, industry sustainability experience was eye-opening. They're all in, and they do a good job. They're a very simple machine, and I'm not here trying to sell robots or a certain brand. So I just felt robotic milking was the future. So let's keep going with the next slide. But yeah, you definitely got to get out and do some touring, attend seminars like this, and guys will teach you and train you. So we were leaning towards robots. We kept touring in Indiana, and the efficiencies on large scale in the States. It was amazing to hear these U.S. farmers that farm big amounts of cattle are slowly converting all their facilities over to robotics. They bought into robotics. They'll do like a test farm, like Fair Oaks, Indiana. I can't remember how many tens of thousands of cows they milk, but they built 1 barn and they loved it. And they're slowly converting all their other freestyle barns over to robotics because they can't keep their employees out of there. They basically just use their same employees from their conventional rotary farm right beside their robotic farm, and they just love being the herdsman and going in there and knowingly they didn't have to milk a cow. They just had to they just had to be a herdsman, which your managers are typically all herdsman folk, and they love it. They can manage cows and they're not bogged down with the physical aspect of milking cows. So the efficiencies on large scale was just unmatched with robots. Surprising the numbers. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we also toured a farm in Canada that did, so we started thinking, okay, large scale Canada. We went to Corners Pride Dairy on BC. They have 31, I think now it's 32 or 34 robots, and they are more than impressed. We even looked out there at, so let's go to the next slide. But we even looked at some other farms out there that had the rotary farms, and they were good. They had their pros and definitely they had their cons. Well, I think that, yeah, robot rotary, they had a lot of issues. They had iodine issues, labor efficiency wasn't great. Yeah, large and small scale robotics, very efficient in almost every aspect. I mean, if you're trying to save the family farm with labor sense and keep not having to have an employee, only 1 or 2 employees, robots make sense. If you're trying to be efficient with a lot of with a larger herd and fewer employees, robots make sense. Big and small, I think the original push for robots was to help the small farm. Now it's more efficiency. It's efficient. Not only is your milking efficient, but every aspect of the herd is efficient. And the cows are more in a natural habitat than they would be in almost any other system. So we kind of threw out the rotary at that point, and we committed to robots. That's, you know, the dealership was crucial for us. We committed to robots. The functionality, extremely important. The designs of the barns are important. But we just felt that it was time to make that step, that leap. And my advice to most of you, obviously you're interested somewhat in robots, it's a good decision. Even if you're thinking, well, how do I just easily expand with robots? Your gains, and I'll go through this in a few slides, the numbers on that, but your gains, and you can go to the next slide, but the gains on just the robot in general is more than going to pay for the extra cost in your robot, for that extra robot. I know each robot, they say, can milk 50 to 60 cows. Ours right now are a little undermanned. They're only milking 40 to 45. We milk about 500 head total. 2 robots are special needs cows. So I'll just show you, if I get the pointer here, the barn. So the original barn is this T-barn. This is our original holding pen, milking barn, and then the old milk tanks up here. And this door faces west towards the mountains. And this is the original barn, this structure here. So this is the T-barn that was built in '96. Just to give you guys an idea, there was no other. This is the robot room. These are robot rooms over here. But this was all free stalls at the time. So we made the decision to come over here, and we built this in 2009. It was a bedded pack barn. And then I had the big expansion where we just built on the 6-row barn and did this large 6-row 480 cow stall building, which I love. We have a composting for dry manure solids over here. Our cows are all in deep bedded compost. We got a separator, and then it goes through a big drum so it dries it out. So it's separated, dried, and then within 2 days later, it's used for bedding. Our cows love it. And so with this barn, obviously these robot rooms, these are just double robot rooms. They were not there at the time, but our cows would get filtered down this alley, and then down this other alley towards the holding pen, build another alley here, and into our pen here. So the rotary originally we were going to build was going to be right here in this open area here. There's just some calf hutches and stuff here at the time. So we're going to put the rotary here, and then we're going to renovate this barn to have our holding pen and flip it to run north-south here and feed the back of the rotary, which would have worked. It would have been great, but we got the quotes in. The quotes were, the numbers on that. Our quote actually here, I think I'll throw it out there, was about 2.4 million for the rotary and for the holding pen, where we got into 10 robots at about, I think it was about 1.6 million Canadian. And then 2 more robots came at about 300,000 a piece. So we did this barn. This is this here. We put our robots here. We just felt we had a crossover here at the time, so we only lost about these groups were about 120. They were 123 stalls at the time, and that's because we designed that because our holding pen couldn't fit more than 120 cows in it, with the cows in the parlor as well. So this was definitely a big deal for us. My dad and I, we sat there and we felt we're losing stalls with robots. So we did not like the concept to begin with. A stall means at least one cow in that stall. And so we had a real hard time because we were losing about 12 stalls per group, which we had 5 main groups here. That's 60 cows. That's a lot, you know, for Canada. That's sometimes that's the average farm in some areas is 60 cows. We did not like that concept. The dealerships and our nutritionists, they kind of started helping us think about, you got to start thinking liters and kilograms of butter fat ship instead of just this method here. And so we committed to this design because we felt it was the best design for our barn. Construction was very minimal. We did construction with the cows in the barn at the time. And yeah, we love it. So this time now, so we went in there, we put the double, these are 2 robots here in a toll booth style, which you'll see a photo of it here in a few minutes. But then these cows, so for example, these cows, they freshen in this barn. There's actually a drive-through alley here too, but there's a bedded pack here. Got a little calving area here as well. But they come in here, and this is all gutted. This used to be our palpation area. That's why the design's like this. But this area now is all completely open, and it's our fresh cows, and they feed into the robot. This robot is not there. It's actually a toll booth right here. So then our fresh cows have a nice bedded pack. They feed into this robot, and they get zipped around and go right back to the bedded pack. Any special needs cows or anything, mastitis cows, they get filtered into this robot here. And so in this room here can send milk many different directions. It can either send it milk to the bulk tanks, or it can send milk to the pasteurizers that we use for the calves up front. Or we have what we call an M4U, which is a colostrum bucket gathering system, or it can send it down the sewer. All of our other robots are all just sends the milk either to the sewer or to the milk tank. So we try to keep our high somatic cell cows up here to be able to watch them more. Any cow that's tested positive for staph gets isolated into this group here and never leaves that group. We just don't have the guts to, let's go to the next slide, but we just don't have the guts to completely just get rid of those cows. Some of them are very good cows, very good genetics, family lines that we like. We are a commercial herd. We don't register our cattle, but we just like the way we did it. And so this is the basic 3D layout of the barn. This is the middle of the area. If I were to build a brand new facility, I think I would take these 8 robots. There's a robot on either side of this building. I would duplicate it, and I love it. If you wanted to go differently, you can do larger groups. These groups have about 108 to 110 free stalls in them. We can easily milk 120, 130 cows in there without overcrowding too much, because the mentality of a robot farm shifts. It's not a numbers on a per cow basis, it's more the herd mentality. So cows, when I go through with the feed wagon, about 1/3 of them come up and eat, 1/3 of them are sleeping, and 1/3 of them are just kind of hanging out, drinking, using the back scratchers or using the robot. So you're not really bulk doing anything. When you are in a parlor or rotary, cows will come back from the parlor and you want them to be standing at the feed bump. And so we try to feed right during milking. So once they get back, they're lined up feeding. But now they're just kind of in their own element. Cows here, they can access this robot here, and there's a little swing gate here, or they can access the other side, which you can kind of see down here as the other side. So they have clear, straight access to the robots. If the cow wants, she can go through a swing gate here into a fetch pen, where she's got feed, and then her only way out of that pen is to go through the robot. And then once you get through the robot, we're going to jump right over here. There's a sort gate here. This cow either gets sorted into a sort pen, or she comes straight through and does a loop around the building and goes out the gate, and she's into her home space again. The cow on this side will get sorted here and either get sorted out to where she's home or go straight through to the sort pen. And these sort pen cows, I'm going back and forth because it's all identical. But they can go through these swing gates and access this robot at any time. They have feed here on the feed bump. There's a water bowl right here. If I were to change this in any way or form, I would make it so these sort pens are a little bit bigger. We do not have headlocks on our feed alley. We have a feed rail system. I had old headlocks that made a ton of racket and they always didn't work in my old barn, so I just did not want to go back to headlocks. And I always felt when you're doing preg check or something, we do preg check 1 time a week, every Monday. We sort out our cows here. We lock them here. There are headlocks right here on the spot here. Cows lock up. We sprinkle a little bit of pellet up there. They lock up nice and easy, and it's great. So let's go to the next slide. So we really like this design. Manure system's all scraper manured into a culvert area, and it gets swept away. But if I were to change that design at all, I would probably go a little bit bigger on the sort pen. And you can here's a real-time picture here with our cameras. Yeah, so the cows can access both sides. There's a swing gate for the fetch pen. There's the white hoppers on top of the roof that feed the pellets into the robots. And, you know, that's great. When we, let's go to the next slide. I mean, it's a good view of the barn right there. But when we went to move in, and one of the biggest issues was the starting up process. We had groups of about 80 to 90 cows. So we started up 1 week. We went group 1, group 2, group 3, about 80 to 90 cows per group. And then we waited a week and started up groups 4 and 5. And I was really stressed out. The dealership really helped out. Lady sent some guys in there just kind of coached me through the process. I didn't have any siblings to help me out. I didn't have any cousins to help me out. My dad's 68 now, so he's 65-ish at the time. Now he's good to hang around and BS a little bit, but it was kind of me and my guys. So we trained them. What we did is during construction, the cows were around the robots and they did excellent. My cows had been through hell a lot because they had a roof collapse on them and everything, but it was quite tough. So we starting that process was really easy. I was terrified going into it, but it was really quite easy. It was the mentality of my guys wanted to push the cows through the robot to get them milk because that's what they're used to in the parlor. But then that changed after about a day and a half. The dealership was like, you have to stop pushing the cows, allow the cows to choose. So we just kind of grouped them and pushed them towards the robot, and they just started going through the robot on their own. And within 3 days, 3 to 5 days, the cows were going through and no problems at all. So we just learned, don't push the cows, herd the cows. Free traffic, the lady does push free cow traffic. I believe that free cow traffic is the way to go. Once we got through the startup process, all your gates are typically moved. The cow can have free access to go to the robot. Your refusals, they'll go through the robot a little bit more, but also gives it time to sort the cow off if you need to give her a vaccine or estromate or hormones or anything like that. We just had to learn to back off. Yeah, I mean, manual attaching robots, you naturally just want to attach the robot to the cow. Lady's a firm believer in not doing that. And we just had to learn that just let the robot do its thing, trust the robot, and it does it, and it did a good job. So like somatic cell, which was one of our biggest issues, it came down. We were fighting with about a 350 somatic cell for many, many years. In about 2.5 years' time, we're sitting about averages about 160. My guys have done an incredible job. I give them all the credit. We haven't really had to cull heavy. We're just really smart. We take swabs of our robot cups about once a month, and every single time it's the vet clinic that does it, and they do many robot herds, but there's a 99.9% kill on that robot cup of bacteria. We have the pure steamers on our robot, so they disinfect it with high temperature steam. They clean them well. There's a back flush system, and that was great. And we had an iodine back flush system in our parlor already, but we felt we were pretty clean. This just helped us out. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so we were really, really happy with the progress we were having with the robots. So here's a good slide here. So our parlor 2 times a day, we were sitting at about 32 liters, which was average. We were okay with that. I was just trying to get my head wrapped around a lot of different aspects at the time. The biggest thing to watch for, I like to look at, is the fat per day. That's what we get paid for here in Canada. So we're at 1.28 kgs per cow per day. We went to the parlor pre-robots, went up a little bit. Our costs went up. We didn't like that. Our labor went up. We went into robots, and 6 weeks in, our cows nailed it. It did help that we had some good feed and everything for them. 41 liters, 3.8 fat, almost 1.6 fat per day. And it was kind of hard to tell on our chemicals and labor at the time. Present, we're doing now 40 liters, and actually our butter fat right now is about a 4.35, sitting at about 40 to 39 liters. So we're almost about 1.7 kgs of butter fat per day, which for us is good. My goal is to get up towards 2. That's a long-term goal. Our chemicals and labor is actually at 6,000. And right now our labor on 500 cows in the barn, this is my dairy labor, is actually 3.5 right now. The half guy is because he's a relative and he's the feeding guy and doesn't really do much else. Could one of the other 3 guys probably do that job? Yep. But blood's blood, I guess. So our chemicals and labor, I thought it would be higher, but it's actually 6,000, 6,500, and a lot minimal labor. Right now, our average salary for a guy is around 60 to 70,000 a year, the cost. So to save that on 2 guys, 120 grand, just like that, huge deal for us. Let's keep going with the slides. Trying to get through this, get you guys back to your families and supper time here. So the economics, we were really happy with the results we were getting. We just, 6 weeks we hit that peak. The milkings per day were about 3.1. Refusals, we're not a full barn. We're only 25%. We're at 25% capacity. So we have 25% more room. Technically, you don't want to get below 8 is what a rule of thumb is. Rumination is good. We have real-time data. We have the somatic cell readers, milk temperature, every milking if you want. You can set it for it's a smart system. Failures, we don't have a lot right now. Mature cows, 0.5 a day. That's on 500 head. Heifers a little bit more, obviously. Your fresh cows and heifers, your fresh heifers would be a lot more. The rest of the herd's different. My biggest con going into the whole robot thing was I was worried about night calls. I'll be honest, we're roughly 2 a month. Like we do not get a lot of night calls. I think the last one we had was 10, 11 days ago. And the only reason why we had it was those cows going in and out of the robots, crisscross, and sometimes the gate doesn't swing back fast enough. So the cow gets stuck in the gate, and we call it a cow jam. Bad design on our part. We just got to fix the gates better. I just got to put bigger loops so they can't hold the gate open. And that'd probably eliminate another half of our phone calls. Cluck cows, the fetch cows, on our groups 1 through 5, which is our main groups, we'd be lucky to have 1 cow per group per day. We'd only have maybe 3 or 4 out of all 5 of those groups, and that's almost 450 cows. Our fresh group and our special needs group, mostly our fresh groups a little bit more. Let's keep going with the next slide. But the rest of the fetching, it got better. We had 10 robots, and then we had, for about a year and a half, we were milking our fresh cows in the parlor, and they tried to get me to go all in right from the beginning. I honestly lacked the faith, lacked the trust that it would all work. My dad always felt, well, at least we have the parlor to use it if we had to. So we were milking our sick cows and our fresh cows in the parlor for a little bit, and it just wasn't working. Cows were going back and forth. Some guys make it work. I'm not sure how they do it, but they were going back and forth between systems, because if they had high somatic cell, we'd pull them out to collect the waste milk, to treat them, and we're good. They'd put them back in. They would go down in milk because they're obviously off pellet. They're on a TMR again. They didn't like the parlor system. They're nervous. And we were freshening them in the parlor. But once we went 100% robotic, our numbers just kind of skyrocketed. Our health was much better. So my final thoughts on all that is, don't think about it anymore, guys. Just do it. I know there's opportunities out there with grants and stuff, but people can capture some of those just for being efficiency with power, with the environment. You know, after many, many tours, every robot farm we went to, all different designs, they were happy with their decision. I mean, the real-time data is unmatched. Free cow traffic. I'm a big fan of the free cow traffic. I think that's the way the consumer wants to see it. The feed costs. So that was our biggest. That's one of our biggest concerns was our feed costs going into the whole thing. Our nutritionist did warn us our feed costs will go up, and it did. But then we got, and he could not believe the data, but we were saving on feed costs 4 to 5 cents per liter of milk ship because our cows picked up milk, they picked up butter fat. They were just more in their natural element, getting, they know their body, they're getting done what they want to get done. So our income over feed cost was over $3 per cow per day. And I asked, man, I brought many different folks in to say, why, what's going on here? They're like, well, it's not like you were doing a bad job before, but your cows are just given the liberty to kind of do what they want. We were giving them the tools that we think they want and letting them just go about their day. And so our income over feed cost to me is a big number there of $3. I think we're about almost pushing $4 now with different feed and everything and just better management. We've been in almost 3 years. So let's go to the next slide. But that's been wonderful for us. We really like that decision. The future, yeah, this is an older slide that's not yet modified, but we are in robot 11 and 12 with the fresh cows, and it's fantastic. Continue to decrease labor by innovation. Some guys will have like overhead stall stuff that they can have the bedding drop into the free stall instead of going in. So we foot bathe our cows. Our foot baths are at the end of each group. We foot bathe them 2 times a week. We do not have many heel warts or anything like that, or foot rots. We put bedding in 2 times a week. We do it at the same time. So we're doing 2 groups a day, Monday through Saturday. Sunday is a break day. On-farm milk culturing, we have that now. Little satellite farms, I think, is a neat idea. We have a lot of land. We have some land. We have irrigation land, but on the dry corners, we can't get as much productivity out of them. You guys with the moisture you get, probably a different story. But I love the idea of doing little satellite farms in land in areas that I can't farm very easily, and it's not as efficient. So, and take down Trudeau and the Liberal as well. We're doing it. We're trying to do it now with all our truck convoys. So, I think let's go to the next slide. I think that might be it. Yeah, it's just my wife and I in Italy with Mr. Vanderlely, CEO of Lely. So good guy. And I think I'm good. Open for questions. Took a little longer.
Yeah, you've done a fantastic job there, Chad. Absolutely perfect timing. Very good and fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for that. We've got a load of questions, so we'll try and answer quite a few of them. I know we might go over a little bit of an hour, but I'm sure people won't complain about that. Right, where do I start? Well, I think we should ask the first question because it did come in first. We got asked today about your views on you've mentioned earlier about free cow traffic versus a batch system where you batch milking. Have you got any? We know you prefer free cow traffic, but what's your thoughts about them both?
Yeah, just to give you an example, we've got 3 farms. They're just not too far from us, and they did go to the guided cow traffic mainly because they're GEA farms, GEA.
Yeah.
They've all ripped them out to be free flow now.
Wow.
And the reason why they went to guided flow or batch flow or whatever you want to call it is the managers, they didn't really want to be in the barn as much. They were kind of afraid of the fetching a cow aspect, like if the cow doesn't come and get milk, going and getting her and bringing her in. To me, a good dairyman always wants his eyes on the cow, his owner or an employee. And so, I mean, we go through, we rake stalls twice a day and we fetch cows. Now, it's very rare we'll have more than 1 or 2 cows on that fetch list. And most of the time we could just leave those cows and they'll be okay. But I think you're making the cow go farther. You're making her do something she doesn't want to do. I think for me personally, the fewer gates, the better. And I know here in Alberta and most of Canada, the free flow has really taken over, because that's just the way that I think the cow would like it. She'd like to go get food, water, get milked whenever she wants. But I think maybe there's a mentality around you can be more labor efficient by not having that, and then the cow's being forced, so you can get that cow in her sort pen quicker. You can force her to go there easier. You can feed a little bit different. But I think overall with herd health, I think you're saving by not spending as much time on herd health, because you're not forcing her to do anything that she doesn't want to do. Naturally, if you have a good quality pellet, a nice hard pellet, the cows are going to want to go to that robot. You're going to have a hard time slowing them down from going to that robot. I do not think it's an issue on trying to get your cows to the robot. If it is, it's a feed company issue.
Right.
Your feed guy. They're doing something wrong if that's an issue.
Well, it came up today. I was on farm with a farmer with 8 robots, and they were asking how crucial is the feed into the robot. So from what you've said, your answer would be, yeah, highly crucial, or?
I would say highly crucial. I mean, a good solid pellet that doesn't break down. I mean, if it's falling apart in your auger system, or we have a chain disc system, so it's a little bit softer on the pellet.
Yeah.
It is important. I mean, most feed companies can provide a good solid pellet.
Yeah.
I've heard they're pretty good though. I don't know. It's important. It's not as, I mean, if you're going from a TMR to a PMR, which you would be going to a robot, to me, it only opens up options. Is it going to cost a little bit more for your feed? Yes, but you gain that back with your herd health and precision feeding. Because I mean, yeah, you can put pellet feeders in your barn, but do you really want to do that? Where you can get it all in one with a robot.
Yeah, great. Okay. Next question, which is twofold. Did you used to love data before you got robot? And were you already IT savvy before you got robot? So it's a data question, really.
I didn't hear your first question there, Laurence.
Sorry. So were you IT savvy, and were you into data before you got robots, or has it just come about after getting robots?
Yeah, so we were into the data. We were doing the DHI milk sampling, but it's only every 5 to 6 weeks. We had milk weights every milking. I had the smart dairy system off of Bomatic in my milking parlor, but that's kind of where it ended, because I didn't want to invest in too much technology because I already had an older barn. But with that data, and I think that's pretty similar across the table, is most guys will have your 5 to 6 weeks, at least over here, of your DHI, which gives you your butter fat per cow, all your detail per cow, but yet by the time you get your results back, it's too late. It's hardly enough to work on that cow that flared up. I mean, the data really took off with the robots. I mean, you can go to a herd navigator with a DLaval. I know a lot of guys end up shutting a lot of that down because of the cost and just the issues they're having with it. I got a neighbor that's still on it and he hardly even uses it anymore. But yeah, the data really took off with the robots. I still try to use data, but it seemed like that my data was always old and outdated. We tried milk culturing in the parlor and it worked. We just didn't do it too extensively, and we probably should have. And that has helped with the somatic cell as well. Yeah, and just having the right guys. I really think I mean, my biggest concern is I had guys that were laborers before, and I would manage them. I have kind of one manager. When I went to a robots, I trained these guys how to work with the robots. And they were good. They could handle it. But I knew that I needed, instead of laborers, I needed herdsmen folk. So I pretty much took 2 laborers and got 1 herdsman. And so I went from 6 guys all the way down to 3. And one of them was just he was one of the laborer guys, and now he's just a really good laborer guy. And I took out 5 other guys and replaced them with 2. And they're herdsman guys. They're educated, they have experience, and they're phenomenal. And I credit most of the success to them on herd health. I mean, they have to help them, and I think that is really important to have. Give your guys the tools they need to do what they want to do.
Yeah, brilliant, great. That's we'll have to capture that slogan. And linking that to the support that you get as a farmer, what involvement does your nutritionist have with things like feed curves and setting up the tables and all that side of it?
So like every Friday, Laylee emails out it's called a Dairy Excel spreadsheet. They compare us with other large Laylee herds in the country in North America. I'm not sure if you guys are in on that too. I'm not really sure, but it compares us where we're at with our numbers and where we've been in the past. That's why that does, and that gives me everything from, it gives me everything. It goes to my nutritionist, my vet, the dealership, the technicians, and everyone just takes 5 minutes, looks at it, and they come to me with say, hey, this is a trend, you might want to keep an eye on that. This is thing, you might keep an eye on that. So your relationship with your feed nutritionist is really important. So with feed tables, we work with a representative from the robot company and the feed nutritionist. The vet, I think I know more about the feed tables than the vet does, but really the feed nutritionist, because they're making the feed for us. And you just slightly adjust them. We're still adjusting, depends on the feed, the refusals the robots have. Like right now, we're trying to get our heifers peaking more. So on our first lactation animals, we set it so they can get a little bit more pellet sooner to get them roaring. We give them better access to the robot. And you can set that manually per cow, per demographic, per location, per robot. There's lots of flexibility there. So your nutritionist plays a big key. You want nutritionists that know what they're doing. I definitely would not go with a nutritionist if anyone's looking at switching companies or whatnot that haven't worked with robots in the past. They can make you promises, but to not have the experience, I think you're losing.
Great, thank you. In Canada, you mentioned Peter. From a consumer perspective, are they loving robots? Do you get really good feedback from the consumer, from the people out on the streets?
Yeah, I mean, I think the robots and the free flow aspect of the robots as well. I mean, ideally, I love the idea of pasture systems. I went to Ireland, and there's a couple pasture lady systems out there. With us, where you can't pasture year round, I think personally, one of the best options that a consumer would like to see is that robot, and that cow being able to access that robot whenever she wants. You can create a nice stall atmosphere, but the minute that they see cows in a big herd being forced into a concrete structure, going through something, I mean, once in a while you got to push a cow in a parlor or rotary, it just doesn't look good. And there's horror stories that appear on the media, and that's not good for anyone. We had a local farm that had chicken farmers, and they had activists come and go right into their barn, right into the barn, and they would not leave. I actually knew a couple of those activists, unfortunately. I asked them to come to my barn and just give me their full 2 bits on what they think, and they said, if this was a dairy, maybe they were biased because I was their friend, but I said, give me your 2 bits. It's like, well, if I wasn't vegan and I did this is what I would do. Yeah. I think it plays a big role. We're using automation, which some people don't like, but once they see the automation and how it works, the cow can make her choice. They like it. There's no one forcing her to do something that she might not want to.
Yeah, great.
I'm a milk guy. I just want a dairy farm. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, brilliant. We'll just do a couple more, and then we'll have to bring it to a close, unfortunately. But those questions we don't answer, we will get an answer to you. This is a bit of a split question. Did you keep, I think you may have answered this anyway, but did you keep the existing labour or was it new labour? And who adapted first, the labour, as in staff, or the cows?
Great question. The second question I'll answer first. The cows 100% adapted first, 100%.
Yeah.
We moved our main groups into the robots, and then within 3 days, after about a day and a half, I had to retrain my guys on how to do startup. Like, we got to allow the cows to choose. It took my guys days to finally realize they're not chasing, they're not pushing, they're not cow pushers pushing cows through the robot. They're just hurting them, helping them. So definitely the cows adapted first. The cows knew what they were doing before we did. And then for labor, we tried to keep most of our labor moving into the robots. And due to reasons that really aren't related to the robots, really out of the original 6, we had 3-day, we only have 1 of them left. There was 2 of them that were perfectly capable of, they were all the same family. So it just wasn't not a good situation. And then really there's 2 of them that were kind of a little more educated, a little more smarter. The rest of them were just laborers. You've got to be somewhat savvy on how a cow works, how a machine works, and how they work together to make it work together. So, I mean, you definitely can do it. We did it, and we would have been just fine, but it was a change that I wanted to make for a long time. I just used the robot downsizing of labor as an excuse. I let a couple of guys go, and I lost the whole family. So I brought 2 more guys in, and I've never looked back.
Brilliant. One last question, Chad, if you don't mind. It's about your own ambitions on farm. And do you have a production target in mind per robot? And is there a break-even number in your mind per robot per year, say, or just on a daily basis, whichever's easier for you to work out? So yeah, that target. Do you have a target in mind per robot in liters?
Yeah, good question. I honestly haven't really dove into the per robot production number yet. And the reason being is I've more focused on the per cow number, and it's likely a mistake that I've made so far, and that's probably not the answer you're wanting. But and the reason being is, like, right now, for us to expand, we have to expand with the quota. And I would have, I'm milking about 500. My permitting capacity is 600. I would have loved to be there by now. But with our cows producing about 40 liters, the sky's the limit. I don't have that data on a per liter basis, but I know, like, per cow at 40 liters, I'd be happy with about 50 to 55 liters cows per robot.
Yes.
Now, a lot of guys will say, well, I can milk 60, 65 on a robot. Well, that's because maybe their production's down. But once you start getting into those number efficiencies, I haven't had to get there yet because I have the space. Yeah. I have this because I haven't been able to expand because the quota investment's ginormous right now. The break-even point on a robot, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know that answer. We're making it work, and we're about 40, 45 cows per robot. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Well, maybe we'll check in with you in a year's time and see what the latest is. But yeah, thank you, Chad. That's been amazing. It's great to hear your story, and it's fantastic to see that you're smiling and you're very happy with your decision that you've made. So yeah, huge thank you for coming along today and talking to us over here in the UK. Much appreciated. And just before we sign off for the evening, the next one in March is with an old colleague of mine, Brian, over in Ireland, who has had robots at home for a long time now, and is involved heavily in the market over there, and knows the landscape and can talk us through grazing with his robots. And then I'll be back the following month, and we're talking about feeding, the fundamentals of it. So yeah, hopefully you can make those dates as well. And I'll sign off now. And thank you so much, Chad. I hope it's not too cold over there. -20.
Right now about -10.
Wow.
Warmed up.
Oh, it's warming up. It's warming up.
-30. So we're moving up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone attending. Have a great evening over in the UK, and have a great afternoon, Chad.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah, good night.